Hi everyone, welcome to the Pro MMA Betting Podcast. Really late with the podcast this week, so apologies for that. I wasn't going to do it, but felt I needed to get it done. So it's been really busy trying to get on top of all the tape, so that's why I was going to forego it, because it does take up a good few hours of a day for me, but I'm going to try and bang it out as quickly as I can. 15 fight card, that was kind of putting me off as well, so I'm going to see how quickly we can fly through it. Just as always, we're going to quickly recap on how we got on the weekend just gone. Absolute disaster. Both bets lost. I had Joe Duffy, embarrassing. I don't know why I risked Duffy. I know Duffy very well from the regional scene. Extremely talented guy. I don't know where it all went wrong for him. Should have passed. It looked like he had problems dealing with adversity in fights, kind of things aren't going his way. He seems to kind of lose heart in fights. I just thought he was a class above Alvarez though, but the layoff injuries as well. But I still can't put my finger exactly on where he's gone wrong. Maybe it is just the adversity side of things. He just can't deal with adversity in the cage because he's so talented. It's such a shame that his career's grinded to a halt, and I think he's made the right decision to retire. His heart's clearly not in it. He didn't try and fight that guillotine. I mean, I'm sure it was tight, but you've got to at least roll to your back. Just do everything you can to try and escape. And he was eating low kicks as well. It's obviously something that he has problems with. We saw that in the Diakese fight. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk about it because I'm still annoyed with myself for betting him. But massive waste of talent. And also I had Pantoja as well. I don't really regret that bet. I didn't see him gassing like that. Completely gassed out after the first round. Managed to get some money down on Askarov on live bet to limit the damage, but he just fell off a cliff. Flyweights don't normally gas. Pantoja has gassed in the past, but it was a fight at altitude. And since then he's been in high-paced fights where he's been okay. And the guy just dropped off a cliff after the first round. I don't know if that was an effect from the preparation with everything that's been going on. I don't know. But I don't regret that bet. But yeah, just completely gassed out there. So it was a disastrous weekend. So I just want to completely forget about that, move on, and hopefully make some money this weekend. We've got Bellator happening tonight. So we've got Jackson in that fight. I've got a unit on Jackson. Managed to get him at dog odds. He opened at Bet Online. Well, I don't know if he opened at plus 120. I think at first Jordan Mine was getting bet. So managed to get him at plus 120. Got him at plus 110 as well to get my money down. So I've got him as the underdog, which I'm happy with. The line got better. He almost went up to minus 200 at one point, which was getting out of hand. He's about minus 150 now. Still a little bit too steep for me. You don't know what you're going to be getting with Jordan. But there is Bellator tonight. There will be live betting as well for members tonight on Bellator. Tomorrow we've got boxing before the UFC, so there will be boxing live betting as well. And we've got the stacked 15-fight UFC card. I'm not even plugging my service this week after that horrendous week last week. If you want to sign up, prommmabetting.com, the packages are on there. And it is a busy weekend, but I need to redeem myself this weekend. This card, I don't love it for betting. There's nothing that I'm particularly confident in. There's no big bets, but what I will say is it looks like one of the most open cards I can remember. There's 15 fights on this card, and honestly, the only fight where I would say I'm confident in the outcome is the Khamzat fight against Reece McKee, and that's reflected in the money line. Apart from that, I honestly think every single dog is live, or that the line's too wide and you just can't play the favourite. Amib, I'm pretty confident wins, but Amib's overrated. He's minus 400 or so. I just think there's so many live dogs. So I've got a lot of small bets on this card, mainly on the dogs. It could end up being disastrous, but we're playing the value guys, and I think there's a lot of value on here. It doesn't always work out. You're going to have rough nights when you're playing a lot of dogs, because they are dogs for a reason. But I just think there's too much value in this card to be playing hardly any of the favourites. I think everyone is pretty much live in these spots. So we're gonna run through the cards as quickly as possible. First fight on the card, you've got Nathaniel Wood returning from the John Dodson defeat. He's taking on John Castaneda. I haven't done tape on Castaneda purely because I saw the line open. Wood was like minus 500. He's still there or thereabouts, minus 400, minus 430. I think Wood's a very talented fighter. He's got good striking. He's used his grappling well in the UFC. He looked sensational against John Dodson in round one. Looked great. I remember I even live betted Wood after round one at about minus 220, which is very rare for me to play a favourite on live bet above minus 200. That's how good I thought he looked. And then I remember, I think it was Brad Pickett in the corner giving the advice between rounds, and I just didn't really like it. I haven't gone back and watched the fight, but I'm sure I remember at the time watching it live, he was telling Wood to kind of hold his ground when Dodson was throwing, and I just didn't really like that advice. Wood is someone that does wear his heart on his sleeve. He can get dragged into brawls. Go and watch his fight with Josh Reed on Cage Warriors. Massive brawl. He gets badly hurt on the feet. I didn't think that was great advice. And that's the problem with Wood. A minus 400 favourite, someone like Nathaniel Wood, I just can't touch that price because he's the kind of guy that will get suckered into a brawl. I'm not sure if Castaneda is the kind of guy to bring it out in him, but, and I don't love his chin either. I think he can be hurt. So I can't touch that price with someone who's so hittable. So I'm going to pick Wood, I guess, but I definitely wouldn't be playing that price here, guys. There might be value on, the over 1.5 rounds is like minus 189. They've got it at William Hill as well. First time I've seen that. I was going to say there might be value on the over 2.5, but let's just have a look. That's the need. I don't think he's been stopped. Let's have a look at his record. It's a step up in competition for him here, but split decision. He got knocked out 6 years ago, and then he lost the split to the same guy. So it's not like he's someone that's the easiest guy in the world to finish. For bantamweight fighters, 135 pounds, having the over set at 1 point, well, it isn't set, it is set at 2.5, but the line is available for over 1.5. So, as I say, I've not done the tape, but I think that looks decent. You can get minus 190 on the over 1.5. I think that's a bad bet for someone that's only been finished once. So, yeah, possibly an interesting bet there. I might actually have a look into that. It's the first time I've seen that. But I will pick Wood, but you can't play that money line. Next, we've got Stolze, Nicholas Stolze taking on Ramazan Emeev. Emeev, again, like similar line to Wood, minus 400 kind of area. Look, I'm going to pick Emeev here. I think he wins. I don't think Stolze looks that great. He trains with Peter Sobotta. Can't find any tape on him really from the last couple of years. One of the fights I did find was a quick win, so it's kind of hard to see if he has improved in the last couple of years, and if he has, how he's improved, where he's improved. Emeev should win this fight, but Emeev's he's not a very urgent fighter. He doesn't really go out and finish fights. So, for someone like that, I just can't play minus 400 on someone like that. I am picking him here because from what the tape I can find on Stolze, I just think Emeev is a level above. But as I say, there isn't much tape in the last couple of years. The kid could have improved, and we did see an example of that the other week, Laziz, when he took on Al Hassan. There was no tape in a couple of years. Laziz did not look the same person as he did on tape. Looked much, much improved. Stolze, it's unlikely he's going to come out and look as good as someone like Laziz did, but you never know. That's the risk you take when you bet someone when there's no tape in the last couple of years. So I'd steer clear of this. I can't say I want to play Stolze either, but minus 400 on Ameve, I wouldn't play. I mean, the over's really juiced. Ameve just, the over 1.5 is minus 500. The over 2.5 is minus 300. It's just a pass fight. I wouldn't touch it. Next, we've got Betch Coher taking on Pani Kianzad. Value all day on the dog here for me in Betch. She is criminally underrated every single time. I thought she was going to get some respect off the books, off the public this time, but yet again, no respect for Betch. I know she's awkward looking. She's not the most athletic girl in the world. She is 37 now, but age, she hasn't shown any signs of age catching up with her so far. So I'm going to assume she's going to look okay here. We last saw her back in September. So, 10 months, she could have aged. But I think you find as well the women tend to age better than the men fighters just because they don't take the same kind of punishment as the men. Women don't hit as hard as men, even on a pound-for-pound basis. They just don't take that kind of damage. So they tend to be able to operate better at an older age, is something that I've seemed to have noticed. But she's just criminally underrated. She's coming off a win over Sijara Eubanks, where she was, I think, near on a plus 300 underdog. Had a rough first round where she got taken down. Then she won the next 2 rounds on the feet. Even the Irene Aldana fight, she lost it in the 3rd round. The judges had her 2-0 down, which is bullshit. She won the 2nd round against Aldana. And she was doing well in round 3. I mean, she wouldn't have got the decision anyway because the judges had a 2-0 down, which was ridiculous. But bad fight IQ in round 3. Shot a crappy takedown, which showed off her lack of athleticism, and she ended up getting armbarred. But she was bringing it to Aldana. Aldana's very good on her feet, moves very well. She was just moving forward, trapping Aldana, landing good combinations. She works the body really well. She's she's not as tight technically as someone like Pani, but the girl throws. She will walk forward and take a shot to give one. And she's a little savage. Fight before that, Holly Holm, she lost that. I mean, she was a couple of rounds up, though, before she got caught with that head kick. Fight before that with Marion Renault. She was doing well in that fight. She was lighting Renault up in round 2. And then, again, she got caught with a head kick in that fight. So I don't think Pani really throws head kicks, but something she's been bit susceptible to. And before that, she beat Jessica Rai. Before that, she lost the split to Raquel Pennington. And that fight was very, very close. Could have gone either way. So she does, the Raquel fight, she lost it. Could have gone either way for me. Holmes, she was 2 rounds up. Aldana, I think she put on a very respectable performance. She ultimately lost them fights. So that, that is kind of the worry with her. And when she wins, it's, the Jessica Rai one was a split. So this is probably going to be a close fight. But honestly, I don't know how people are betting Pani up to minus 160 here. She's good technically. She's only young. She's 28 years of age. She's coming off a win over Jessica Rose Clark. I mean, Jessica Rose Clark is not a good fighter. She's a 125er as well. Pani a lot bigger than her. Before that, she got destroyed by Julia Avila, which isn't a bad thing. Julia's a very good prospect. Before that, Macy Kaysen absolutely ripped her apart. Kaysen hits hard as well, so she's been unlucky in the sense she's faced 2 of the hardest hitters in the 125 division or 135 division. But she's facing Betch here, who she doesn't hit as hard as them, but she's going to move forward. I don't like how Pani reacts to being hit. Even though they are big hitters, she kind of shells up, moves back in a straight line when she's under fire. Betch is going to bring it. So I'm going with Betch here. I think the line's off. I cap Betch as a slight favourite here. I don't think she should be at plus 140 at 5 dimes. She's plus 130 elsewhere. I mean, I'm interested to see if any more money comes in on Pani because that line is well too wide for me and there's a lack of respect. So I'm picking Betch here. Next, we've got Tanner Boser turning around quickly. He's coming off that quick win over Felipe Lins, taking on Rafael Pessoa. Boser kind of getting probably maybe a little bit overrated coming off that quick KO win. He's up to, he's getting on for nearly minus 300 favourite here. But I like Boser. He looked in the shape of his life in his last fight. He moves well on his feet. He moves light for a heavyweight. He's got good kicks from the outside. He's got a good chin. He's not really a finisher. Did finish Lins. I had questioned Lindsay's chin. He'd been knocked out a couple of times at light heavyweight, so I'm not going to suddenly start thinking Boser's a finisher. but he put him away nicely, and he's looked good even against Cyril Gain. I mean, clearly lost the fight, but didn't get finished. Put in a respectable performance, and he's got a couple of nice wins where he's dominated the opponent. Rafael Pessoa, he's the bigger man here. He's I think he comes in at about 265. He carries a bit of excess fat around his gut that he could probably do with losing, but I doubt he does. Probably going to come in looking the same here. He uses a lot of spinning attacks, and you saw against Jeff Hughes, he slowed down because of that, and he fights in spurts. He suddenly bursts forward with a combination, then he'll reset for a little while, then he'll do the same thing again, throw a spurt again, he'll run forward, throw a combination, then he'll rest again. That's kind of his style, and that's pretty why he slowed down against Jeff Hughes. But he did get a good victory there. He was the underdog going into that fight, quite a big underdog, I think, if I remember rightly. He pulled off the win. Before that, Cyril Gain, he took Cyril down. Cyril reversed him as they was landing, and Cyril quickly locked up an arm triangle. So I'm not sure where the guy's ground game's at, but I do expect this to play out on the feet. I think Bosa's going to fight long. He uses kicks from the outside, and I think he's going to win a comfortable decision. You can't get behind the money line. He's too juiced. Some people got the opener, I believe. He opened around minus 180. And it's saying on here minus 210. I'm not sure, but I like the decision line. The decision line was plus 125. I don't know if that's changed, but I thought that had a bit of value. I think he's maybe getting a little bit overrated in terms of his finishing ability for the Lins fight. The over is sitting at about minus 160, the over 2.5. I remember getting the over at 1.5 against Cyril Gain, which was a great line. I think I got about minus 140 on that. But I see this going to a decision. It is heavyweight, so don't be dropping your bankrolls on it. Anything can happen in a heavyweight fight, but I do think this sees the scorecards. And I do think Bosa is the man that's going to win the decision based on his work rate. Next, we've got Movsar Evloev taking on Mike Grundy. Interesting battle here of wrestlers. Mike Grundy was I think he was a bronze medalist at the Commonwealth Games. Look, he's clearly a good wrestler for a British MMA fighter. The question mark is what does a bronze medal at the Commonwealth Games actually mean? The Commonwealth Games omits all of the big wrestling countries, basically. You don't have America in there, you don't have Russia in there. So what does a bronze medal actually mean? I don't really know. I mean, I'd like to know what level of American wrestler would go into the Commonwealth Games and be competing for medals. Obviously, your Division 1 wrestlers, etc., would be, but how far down the pecking order would you go for an American wrestler to be competing in the Commonwealth Games? If anyone can answer that for me, I'd be interested. But yeah, I mean, he's clearly a good wrestler. I haven't gone back and looked at who he beat in the Commonwealth Games. I did look at it before when he made his debut. I can't remember. So did he beat a respectable figure in the wrestling world? I can't remember now. Or did he lose to someone respectable? I can't recall. If anyone again can recall, I can't be bothered to go and look. I wasn't going to do this pod, so I'm just firing it out. But if anyone wants to chip in on that, that'd be great. But honestly, I feel Evloev is going to just outwork him here. Grundy's striking has improved. You can see it from the last fight you watch of his where you see some striking. It did look better against Nad, but very restricted. He was pretty much relying solely on the right hand. I know he knocked Nad with the left hook, but low percentage through a naked left hook, caught him on the temple. You know, these naked left hooks, I comment on them on the pod a lot. I hate people that throw a naked left hook. It's such a low percentage move. He drove him for a counter, but he landed it. Fair play to him. But up until then, it was pretty much just the right hand. But he was throwing it fast. He was timing it well. On the feet with Evloev. Evloev is going to throw more volume. I just think he mixes things in better. I think his overall MMA game is more well-rounded. He's going to set a high pace. It'd be interesting to see if Grundy can keep up with that pace. I think Evloev is going to have more success as the fight goes on, and I see him winning a competitive decision, basically. But, you know, he is minus 200. He's hovered down at minus 190 at some books. Some people would have got on that. I like Evloev here, but I fully understand why people would be taking a punt on Grundy. But I just think Evloev's going to outwork him. He's at American top team as well now, Evloev, so it's going to be helping his game. Grundy trains Darren Till's camp, which is they're known for their strikers. You've got Aspinall and Till that are strikers. Terry Etten before. I think Paul Sass actually trained out of that gym, and he was known for his grappling. But I mean, that is good for Grundy because Grundy's got that heavy grappling background. He's going to, his striking is where he needs help. So he's definitely at the right gym to help him on that front. But he's not that young. How much development and improvement is he going to make? Is he striking that we saw against Nad the best it's going to be? Maybe. He's just a little bit one-dimensional on the feet. But overall, I think Evloev will just outwork him, hustle him with the takedowns. Maybe not hold him down, but I just think he's going to wear him out with constant takedown attempts. Grundy's going to have to keep getting back up to his feet. And I think overall that'll pay off and he'll win the fight. Jake Collier taking on Grundy's teammate Tom Aspinall next. Really hard fight to get a read on here. Aspinall, there's a lack of tape. His recent fights are over very quickly. I don't know where he's at. Jake Collier fighting at heavyweight here, was a middleweight. The card seems stacked against Collier. So I'm going to pick Aspinall, but I don't see how you can be paying the price at the minute on Aspinall minus 225. He's taking on someone that's a lot more experienced than him. Just with the question marks, I don't see any value on the money line. Collier's he's a game guy. The over's 1.5, which is minus 150. It's the first time I've seen that actually. So let's just have a quick look at Collier. How durable is he? And he's moving up to heavyweight here, so we need to remember that. I think this is his first fight up at heavyweight. He's been finished 3 times. So he got finished in round 2. God, he's been inactive. Look at his record. He's been fought in 3 years. Oh, wow, that time flies, huh? I didn't realise it was 3 years almost since he last fought. Dongyi Yang finished him in round 2. Vitor Miranda finished him in the first round. Oh, that is a long layoff, and he's coming back at heavyweight. I'll never alarm, but yeah, I'm going to have to pick Tom Aspinall here. But there is a serious lack of tape, and if this gets out of round 1, it could get interesting. Aspinall's been out of round 1 twice, and he's lost both times, albeit the second time he was disqualified. And I remember I've looked for that fight against Parabek and I couldn't find it anywhere. Stuart Austin fight, I remember he was getting dominated in the grappling, but it is 5 years ago. So I'm sure Aspinall's improved, and then he said, his comeback fights, 2 very quick wins. One was a freak leg injury. I remember that on Cage Warriors, and then a real quick TKO win in his next fight. So, I mean, should he be that big a favourite? Oh, I don't know. Finished everyone his fault. Not out of round 1. These just the fights where I just don't know how you can play the favourite. He might come out and blast him and win quick, but there's so many question marks. I mean, Collier's only 31. It's not like he's old. And he did win his last fight in the UFC. Why has he been out for 3 years? Anyone know? It was Fortuna though. He's not the greatest, but I mean, he's better than anyone anyone Aspinall's beaten. So I think this is a good fight for live bet, because if it gets out of round 1, it could get very interesting. So I'm going to pick Aspinall, because he has struggled with strikers, Collier. You look at Miranda and Yang, both knocked him out. But I'm definitely not playing that line, and live bet is interesting here if this goes past round 1. So be wary with that fight, guys. I think with pre-bets, especially if you're playing Aspinall, there's a lot of unknowns there. A lot of things give me the heebie-jeebies on that fight betting Aspinall. Next fight, we've got Jesse Ronson taking on Nicholas Dalby in the men's welterweight division. So Dalby, I know Dalby really well. He had his first stint in the UFC, didn't go too well. He didn't have the easiest fights. Showed his durability though. He beat Zaleski, and then he pretty much went 0-3 3 for the Till fight. He got very fortunate in. Let's be honest, Till's shoulder discalated. He was 2 rounds up. He'd been dropped. Till was in complete control. Then he lost to Zach Cummings, Peter Sobotta, and Pedersoli. So, for all intents and purposes, 4 fights in a row. All are southpaw fighters. Jesse Ronson's a southpaw. Every southpaw dropped him. Does he struggle with southpaws? Possibly. Jesse is a lightweight though. He's fighting up at welterweight here. He's had a few fights at welterweight in the past, but he's already said he'll be moving back to lightweight after this fight. So Dalby is going to have a bit of size on him. Dalby had some problems out of the cage with alcoholism, depression, I believe, as well. Made his way back in Cage Warriors. It was a bit of an unsure start. He obviously lost to Pedersoli, and then they gave him a terrible Italian opponent, Allegretti, where he just held him against the fence in round 1, got the knockout with the head kick in round 2, or he dropped him and then choked him out. Then he fought Philip Mulpeter, an Irish fighter who gave him all sorts of problems with the wrestling. Kept taking Dalby down. Eventually Mulpeter gassed out and Dalby got the stoppage. And then he started to look a lot better thereafter. Alex Lahore knockout in the 4th round, fight he dominated. Then Ross Houston, it was declared a no contest because there was so much blood on the canvas. And I don't know why Cage Warriors are insistent on using that canvas, because it gets very slippery from blood. It doesn't absorb it like the UFC canvas. I don't know why they don't switch. It gets slippery from sweat as well. Dalby was winning that fight. It would have taken a bit of a turnaround for Ross to win that fight. So I class that as a win for Dalby, really. And then he came back, UFC return against Alex Oliveira, got the victory. I think in his home country, was it? Was it in Denmark? I think it was. And he got fortunate there. He got a very, very generous stand-up in round 3 where it was looking like he was probably going to lose the decision, but referee stood them up. Dalby managed to get on top and finished the round strong from mount position, and he got the decision. So can class himself as fortunate there. Jesse Ronson, this is his 2nd stint in the UFC. This guy, man, he was matched so hard in his first run in the UFC. He lost split decisions in all 3 UFC fights to Prazeres, Trinaldo and Kevin Lee. So you've got 3 massive 155ers there that he fought. 2 of them have dabbled at 170. Lost split decisions to all of them. I mean, some fighters are so unlucky. Some fighters are coming to the UFC, they get a couple of easy fights, and then they just find that their career in the UFC paddles out that way. They just get, quite good matchups, and Jesse Ronson, for whatever reason, did not get anything easy. All split decision losses. He went away, had a few losses on the regional scene. I mean, it's not great losing to someone like Matt Dwyer, but when you've been in the UFC and you're cut and you're fighting on these regional shows, it must affect your motivation, because you reach the top of the mountain, you don't last long, and then you're back on the regional scene. Kind of, what are you fighting for? They're going to be small paychecks. He's probably back working, not training full time. Had a shot in PFL last year. Fought Nathan Schultz. Looked good on the feet early. Hurt Schultz to the body. It sent Schultz into clinch mode for the rest of the fight. He kept hitting judo trip on Ronson. Ronson kept getting back up, but he was just getting held on the fence for the fight, basically. Then he moved up to 170 in PFL and fought a Russian chap, Alex Sakin. Good record. Caught Ronson with a knee, dropped him, follow up ground and pound. The ref stopped the fight. And then last fight, he fought a good wrestler in Troy Lamson and smashed him. Got an easy win in round 1. So, you can look at their records here, and it's kind of easy to pick Dalby, but, Ronson's been matched hard. Even in PFL, Nathan Schultz is one of the best lightweight fighters out there. Not an easy fight to have. Very good in the clinches, Schultz. It's a tough stylistic fight for Jesse. And then this Russian seems like a bit of a beast that he lost to as well. So he's never had it easy. Dalby, he's getting up there in age. He's had a bit of a fairy tale return, coming back from the abyss. He's the older guy. He's 36. He's going to have size on Ronson, but this is a kickboxing bout, I think this could be interesting. As I already said, Brunson's a southpaw. There'll be 0-4 with southpaws in the UFC and Cage Warriors. And yes, I'm counting the Till fight as a loss, even though it was a draw. This could get interesting. I think the line's too wide. I mean, the line opened at a ridiculous, like, minus 500 for Dalby. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Whoever got on that line for Bronson at plus 350, whatever he was, congratulations. I still think there's value now at, he's kind of down to about plus 200 now. Dalby is going to be the bigger man. Can he get Bronson down and keep him down? I don't think he can. Can he get some control in the clinch? Maybe. But at range, I think this is an interesting fight. Dalby has great stamina. He's very durable, but he's got no power. He does have a very good head kick, and against a southpaw, the head kick is live, so Bronson has to watch out for that head kick. But, Bronson's not a mug. Like I said, his first run in the UFC, all split decision losses. And I think he's going to run Dalby close here, and I'm going to pick Bronson to pull off the upset. I think the line's too wide still. I definitely wouldn't want to pick Dalby as that wider favourite. I don't see him finishing the fight. I think you're basically betting on a Dalby decision, which could definitely happen. But the line's too wide for me. I think Dalby should be a smaller favourite here, maybe minus 150. Like I said, he's lucky he's not coming off an L to Cowboy. Got that fortuitous stand-up. And Bronson is fighting upper weight class. He is really a lightweight, so that goes against him. But I think this is going to be a close fight, and I'm picking Bronson to pull off the upset here. Next, we've got Trinaldo taking on Jai Herbert. Jai Herbert, been on the Cage Warriors scene for a while, trains out of the Leon Edwards camp. I know Leon said he's the best boxer in that camp, and they've got some good stand-up guys in there. It's hard to get a full read on Jai because he's been demolishing the opponents put in front of him, and that's what you want from a prospect. Now, I say he's a prospect, he is 32 years of age. So it's now or never for Herbert. He's got to make a run there. This is his, last chance to live. He's a lightweight fighter. Minus Trinaldo, these guys don't really last long. Age-wise, at that weight class, he's kind of, in the next couple of years, he's probably going to start to regress. So he needs to make moves. He's got a stern test here against Trinaldo, the man that drinks from the fountain of youth. I've been saying for years, Trinaldo might slow down this fight, and it's still not happened. I honestly don't think I've ever bet a Trinaldo fight, purely because I'm always just like, is this going to be the fight where he slows down? Is it not going to be the fight where he slows down? I've just always avoided his fights like the plague. Money's been coming in on Herbert here. Trinaldo is down to about a minus 130 favourite. I can understand why people like Trinaldo here. He's always a bit underrated, but he always pulls out the wins. He's durable. He's big for the weight. But he is 41. He's almost 42. It's going to be a point where he slows down. He's never been knocked out. So, realistically, Herbert probably needs to win a decision here. Kevin Lee hurt him with a head kick. Jay's more about the strikes with his hands. He's going to have a speed advantage here. He's going to have to use his speed. Speed is going to be key for him here. If Trinaldo comes in with a clinch, takedown heavy approach, it might work well for him to begin with, but he does slow down. Herbert seems to have a very good gas tank. Seen him wrestled in fights before, work his way up into round 3 and looks fresh as a daisy. So this could get interesting the longer it goes. And I think the longer the fight goes, the more it favours Herbert. I think he's got the better gas tank. I think he's got the better work rate. That's always been the knock on Trinaldo, is his volume's pretty low. He fought quite well against Makdessi. He came out pretty aggressive in that fight, but Makdessi he didn't really wake up until round 3. He wasn't really offering anything back. He kind of seemed worried about the power. Herbert does have a knockout loss to Reece McKee from, I think, about 4 years ago. So, that is a bit of a concern. But Trinaldo hits harder than his record indicates. He does crack. You don't want to be taking square shots off of him. I still, to this day, don't know how Yancy Medeiros survived against him for 3 rounds. He had that guy in so much trouble. But, I think the only stoppage loss I remember for Trinaldo is the Chad Laprise fight. I know he stopped Felder, but that was on a cut. So he's not a finisher historically. He did put Evan Dunham away with a knee to the body, but Dunham seems really susceptible to the body, and he's kind of past his sell-by date at that stage as well. So, if he doesn't put him away early, I think this fight gets I think Herbert comes into it more and more. Now, Herbert was up at around plus 160, was he? It says he was plus 140 here. So, I mean, he's been bet down now. He's plus 110. So the value's starting to evaporate. You know, you have to have Trinaldo as the favourite because Herbert is unproven. But I think the longer it goes, the more interesting it gets. And Trinaldo's not known as being a finisher. So I'm going to go with another dog. I'm going to go with Herbert. Even though there's probably not really any value left on this fight now. If you wanted to bet him, if you got in at the plus 140 mark, good bet. But who knows? This could be the fight where Trinaldo shows up and starts to look his age, maybe. But, you know, Jay Chin is a question mark, but Trinaldo isn't historically a finisher. He does slow down. Jay's gas tank runs really well. So I'm going to go with Jay here. Next fight, we've got Khamzat Chimaev taking on Rhys McKee. Look, Khamzat, huge favourite. Minus 1,400, one of the biggest favourites you've ever seen in the UFC. He's going to win this fight. I know Rhys McKee well. He's going to struggle with the takedowns and grappling. I think the main question here is, from a betting perspective, is the value on the over 1.5 rounds, because you very rarely see an over at 1.5 rounds set at plus 170. Look, it's a tough one to know if it's going to hit or not. Rhys McKee has been stopped in the first round against not a great opponent. I remember when I looked into that fight previously, apparently he had a really tough weight cut for that particular fight. So there is that angle to be worried about. But John Phillips, he's got a very poor ground game, very poor indeed. So it probably inflated Khamzat a little bit. Let's remember Charles Byrd subbed John Phillips in the first round on the mat. So I want to see if you're going to bet this fight. I think, I can't be betting an under 1.5 at minus 200. It seems like everyone is on Khamzat in round 1 or round 2, Khamzat under, and that worries me as well. And seeing an over at that kind of price, I think the value is on the over. It'll be sweaty, it might not hit, but it's plus 170. If you want to have a dabble, I think the dabble is on the over. You might get egg on your face, as I've said already, but there's no way I'm betting an under at minus 200 just because someone's come in and, he's won all his fights on the regional scene in round 1, although one of them went into round 2, the one before the Phillips fight, and then the Phillips fight. I mean, his last 2 fights, the over missed by about a minute. And Rhys McKee, he's a well-trained guy. He's better on the ground than John Phillips. He's smaller. I don't know if he's going to be able to take that kind of punishment that Phillips did, but he might not put himself in such a bad position and be controlled as easily. So I'm not confident, but for me, it's value all day on the over there, because it's very rare you're going to get an over at that kind of price. So that's where I see the value. Next fight on the card, we have Peter Sobotta taking on the Brazilian Cowboy. Peter Sobotta coming back from a 2-year layoff here. I know he suffered some kind of neck injury in the Leon Edwards fight. So the question mark is how he's going to look coming back from that 2-year layoff. He's only 33. It was a solid fight at Sobotta. Had a loss to Carl Noak, not a good look to have a loss to Carl Noak on your record, but he looks a little bit susceptible to the body. He got caught to the body early. Shit happens. I wouldn't read too much into that loss. Otherwise, solid wins. Pavel Pavlak, Steve Kennedy, dominating them both. Nicholas Dalby, 30-26. Nicholas Dalby, completely dominated him. Ben Saunders, done what you're supposed to do against Ben Saunders, put him away. And then he gave Leon Edwards a decent fight. He was fairly competitive with Leon. He took Leon down. He's a well-rounded fighter, Peter. He makes me a little bit nervous on the feet. I don't know why. Just something about him on the feet makes me nervous. But, he's a southpaw. He's well-trained. I mean, he dropped Nicholas Dalby. He dropped Saunders a few times. He's dangerous on the feet. He's got a nice jab, nice fast jab. But Peter Sobotta's strength is getting the fight to the floor. He's not a good wrestler in the sense of being a chain wrestler, but he does time his double leg takedown very well. He hit one on Leon in round 3. He took Dalby down with it. He does time it well. He's not someone who's going to go out though and kind of overly pursue takedowns. So this could be a bit sweaty on the feet because, as I say, he's not going to go out and just pursue takedowns non-stop, and he can't chain wrestle, so he has to time his takedown attempts well because he is kind of double or bust. He did have one on Dalby where I think he caught a kick. Dalby gave his back to release his leg. Sabota took the rear body lock and pulled him down in that manner. So, but for me, he's going to want to take this fight to the mat because Brazilian Cowboy is very bad off of his back, not good at all off his back. So that is going to be the path of least resistance here for him. But as I say, could be a bit sweaty on the feet because he won't overly chase the takedown. He'll wait to try and time it. Brazilian Cowboy, dangerous guy on the feet. He's got power. He's got very long limbs. He's got good wrestling offensively. He's used that a lot in his fights. He's good from top position, but he is a bit of a liability off his back. I mean, you saw it in the Max Griffin fight. Max Griffin won round 1 because he had top control, and then round 3, he managed to get on top. He reversed Brazilian Cowboy, and Brazilian Cowboy got stuck on his back for the last minute and a half or so of the round. He's really not great off of his back, so he needs to try and avoid that here against Sabota, who's a Dean Lister Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Is he a Dean Lister black belt or the person that trained Dean Lister? I can't remember, but he's definitely got a legitimate black belt as Sabota. The Max Griffin fight, I think it could have gone either way. I thought he'd done enough damage in round 3 when he had top position to outweigh what Max Griffin done when he got top position for the last minute and a half. Before that, he lost to Dalby. We've already touched on this when we spoke about the Dalby fight. He was unlucky there. He probably would have got that decision if he didn't get reversed or stood up, by the referee in round 3. Before that, he lost to Mike Perry. Before that, he lost to Gunnar Nelson. Before that, a quick win over Pedersoli. Carlos Condit, who isn't the fighter he once was. So we've got an interesting fight here. But the line is too wide for me. I've got to pick Peter Sabota here. He's like the plus 150 underdog. And I think, if Sabota fights smart here, tries to time his takedowns well and get the fight to the mat, I think Cowboy is in trouble on his back. He's not good on his back. It's a huge weakness for him. He's never looked good off his back. And this could potentially look a bit like the Gunnar Nelson fight without the massive cut occurring. So I'm going to pick Sabota. I don't love the long layoff. And like I said, with his takedowns, he is kind of double leg or bust. So it's a little bit of a worry. But I'm not sure if Cowboy is declining. You look at his wins, and I mean, even Ryan LaFleur kind of retired not long after they fought. Carlos Condit isn't the same guy. Pedersoli kind of flopped in the UFC. I mean, he's competitive though. Even in the Gunnar Nelson fight, he won round 1. He was competitive with Perry. He won round 1. He does tend to slow down as well. Nicholas Dalby, unlucky to lose that, but either way, it was a close fight. He kind of fights close. I mean, even like Carlos Condit, I remember Carlos Condit taking him down. So there's definitely a path here for Sabota, and at plus 150, I think you've got to play Peter Sabota personally. So I think the value's on him. Next fight, Antigulov, Paul Craig. Oh, God, crazy fight this. Paul Craig's flipped to the favourite. He's minus 135. And Antigulov is plus 115. I think it could be a good live bet fight if Craig can survive the first 3-4 minutes because he's bound to get taken down. His takedown defence sucks. The Shogun, the way he ended up on his back against Shogun both times was a joke. He got stuck there until the end of the rounds. I think he was lucky to get a draw there, albeit Shogun looked awful. But if it gets into round 2, it could flip to advantage Paul Craig, and you might get a good line on on Craig after round one if the bookies aren't sharp here and don't realise what they're getting with Antigulov, and if he dominates round one. So I actually got it just opened on. Well, I don't know when it opened on Bet Online. It was only within the last few hours, but I actually got Antigulov by submission at plus 450 at Bet Online. I thought that was way too wide because that is his best path to victory. It might be a case of his round one or bust, but he's won most of his fights by submission. I think he's only ever won one decision. So, but he is in danger. The guy. The other thing with this fight as well, when you look at Antigulov tape, is the only fight in UFC he's gassed in is the fight with Kutalaba, where he kept taking Kutalaba down and Kutalaba kept getting back to his feet. So, that does wear you out. But the way, Antigulov shouldn't have gassed as bad as he did, but that does wear on you. He got 2 quick victories, so he couldn't judge his gas tank, and then he's lost to the Polish chap, Mikhail. He didn't gas in that fight, which was over really quickly, but he was just so reckless. He was like running at him. It was just crazy what he was doing. So he does have a round 2 win on his record, and he does have a decision win on his record. Now, I'm just saying this purely because I think he will be able to take Craig down pretty easily. And Craig isn't good at getting up off of his back. He is dangerous off of his back. We've obviously seen that with the triangle wins over Kennedy and the very good Russian Ankalaev. So, you've got to be very careful on your back against him, on top against him. But, Antigulov, as long as, he doesn't kind of lose control and he keeps having to take Craig down, Craig keeps getting back up, which Craig has never shown really any ability to do. I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility that Antigulov could grind out a decision here if he can't get the early finish. Because Paul Craig's takedown defense is so bad, and as I've said, he doesn't really show get-up ability. And if Antigulov just decides to settle into guard, where he will be comfortable, he's a grappler. He shouldn't be gassing out from top position when you're in guard, in someone's half guard. It's that working to get the takedowns again, like against Kutalaba, that wears guys out. But, maybe I'm being a bit far-fetched here, but it's just Paul Craig is so limited. But if Antigulov does gas, he goes out, he gives it all round one and slows down, then it's definitely advantage Paul Craig. So as an underdog, I'm going to pick Antigulov. He's the plus 115 underdog. I'm definitely not confident. I think it's definitely a good live bet fight. If Antigulov goes all out in round one, he looks like he's slowing down, live bet Paul Craig, because Paul he is a gamer and he's very dangerous. We've seen this, but he's also been extremely lucky. The Ankalaev fight he was going to lose 30-27. He won with a second left. The Kennedy fight, he was 2 rounds down in that. He gets the win with a minute left in round 3. The draw with Shogun, I think he was lucky to get a draw there. He's been a bit fortuitous, so. And he lost to a keylock against, I think it was the Australian chap. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but, you never see keylock submissions. It's very rare in the UFC. Do you see that? Which, it's just like, how good is his submission defense? And Tyson Pedro, the only other grappler he's really faced, TKO'd him on the mat. He's been matched against his style a lot. He got the good win in the previous fight against the guy that's looked awful in the UFC, who is a good grappler but just has terrible striking. Let me just bring up his details. That is the guy's name. He was meant to fight the other week, but I think did he contract COVID? I can't remember. Vinicius Moreira. So he beat him. He was a grappler, but Moreira never got him to the mat. Craig managed to defend the takedowns, and I think he caught him with a knee and then grounded and pounded him and took the choke. But most of his fights have been against strikers, not really full grapplers, except for Tyson Pedro. I'd class as a grappler, and would you class Jim Crute as a grappler? Probably would, although his striking's definitely improving. He's a young chap. He seems happier to throw down there, but he's definitely a dangerous grappler. And against Antigulov, he's got a dangerous grappler here, at least for round one. But like I said, I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility if Antigulov fights smart that he can't just hit takedowns each round and maintain top position. But of course, you need to be very careful with Craig's guard. But Shogun managed to stay out of danger. It's just you just can't switch off. But if he does start to slow down, that's when the brain doesn't work as well. You start to make mistakes. But I'll pick Antigulov with the plus number, but I'm definitely not confident enough to bet it. I did take the submission because I just thought plus 450 was off, but I think it's definitely a potential good live bet fight. Next fight on the card, let's bring up the list. Esparza Marina Rodriguez. Marina Rodriguez is a savage for a woman. I really like her stand up. You don't see many women like her. Complete savage. She does damage on the feet. Really good in the tire plum. Really good knees. Her takedown defense. On the fence, it's good. She frames very well. But it's not so good in open space, which is where, funnily enough, Carla Esparza's takedowns all come from, open space. She's not someone that's particularly good at taking you down on the fence, and I think she will struggle there against Marina, and I think she'd be smart to avoid any clinching, really, with Marina, because I don't think she'll get takedowns on the fence, and I think she'll be the one that ends up taking the punishment. So it's the open space takedown she needs to be worried about. Marina, we've seen her taken down. Randa Marcos 10-8'd her in the first round. Cynthia Calvillo 10-8'd her in the third round. So, when she's been stuck on the bottom, she's lost a couple of rounds 10-8. She did get up against Cynthia the first time in round one. She got taken down again in round one towards the end of the round, and she was kind of in a bit of a scramble, but time ran out, so you couldn't see if she was going to get back to her feet or not. I don't think she was, to be honest. I think she was against the cage, but I think Cynthia had kind of almost mounted her. So that is the worry. The thing is, Carla doesn't really do much from top. She's not really a submission threat. I remember her locking up her head and arm on Randa Marcos. I think Randa was maybe saved by the bell. So, you got to watch your P's and Q's, but generally speaking, she's not someone that advances position and looks to do damage. She is more of she just kind of stay on top of you. We saw that in the Alexa Grasso fight. And I see this as kind of being similar. Alexa Grasso was very aggressive in that fight. She had success, but she was being a little bit over-aggressive, and it was giving the takedowns to Carla. And we saw when Carla faced Karate Hottie in her last fight, the takedowns didn't really come for her, but that's because Karate Hottie is a counter striker. She isn't going to be someone that's going to be aggressive and given a reactive takedown like Marina, like Grasso do. So I don't think you could really read, I've seen people looking at that fight saying, she couldn't take Walderson down, or maybe she got one takedown, but styles make fights, guys. You've got to be wary of that. So for me, I blind betted Marina when this fight was first scheduled. I think I got minus 140 and minus 150. The bet got voided because the fight was cancelled. Line now, she's... I came away after tape thinking, would I have kept the bet? I don't know. She's been bet up now to minus 175, minus 180. It's probably a little bit too high, maybe, but the thing is, Marina will do damage on the feet. We're seeing less and less of lay and pray rewarded these days. Even if Marina's only on the feet for a minute of a 5-minute round, she's the type of person that could do enough damage to still win the round if all Carla's done for the previous 4 minutes is pretty much lay on her. So this is a tough one for me. I think the line is a bit wide now. I don't like minus 180. I can completely see why people would take a stab on Carla here. I'm going to pick Marina just because I just don't like the thought of betting Carla, just because I think she will get takedowns, but I just see her laying on her, and it just worries me if she's going to, she just scraped that Grasso fight out of the bag, and Marina is so good on the feet in terms of her aggressiveness and the damage she does. So I'm going to pick Marina here, but I'm not in love with the price. So I fully understand why people would pick Esparza, but my pick here is still going to be Marina. And yeah, I wish they'd kept the minus 140, minus 150. I probably would have let it run. I can't remember how much I had down, maybe just over a unit. But there definitely will be some sweaty points when Carla gets takedowns. I'd be surprised if she doesn't. Next fight, we've got Alexander Gustafsson coming back, taking on Fabricio Verdum. I put this out on my Twitter the other day. I don't understand why Gustafsson is such a big favourite here. Look, I might get egg on my face here, but the odds are basically implying that he wins 80% of the time. I just don't buy that at all. I know Fabricio didn't look great against Oleinik. He's coming off the PED suspension. How is he without the PEDs? Is he a different fighter? He's 42 years of age. But I said in that fight the odds were stupid. I think Verdum was a similar price to what Gustafsson is here, and I picked Oleinik. A lot of people laughed at me, and Oleinik won the fight. I went back and watched it. Verdum, he didn't look great. He didn't look great in the Volkov fight either. He slowed down in the Volkov fight. Didn't really have an answer for him on the feet. So there's a lot of red flags regarding Fabricio Verdum here. What's he fighting for? Is he fighting for money? But guys, Alexander Gustafsson, come on. He's moving up to heavyweight here. His first fight heavyweight. Is he going to look better? Look, maybe. We don't know. But he quit in his last 2 fights for me. And something Fabricio Verdum doesn't do is quit. You saw that in the Oleinik fight. He took some big shots against Oleinik and he ate them. He didn't give up once in that fight. He kept fighting and he nearly won it in round 3. I live betted Oleinik, and in round 3 I thought I was done. He had his back. He went for an armbar. He had some good moments in round 3, but just couldn't get the finish on that. That Oleinik, one tough son of a gun. But Verdum's got heart, and he's tough as well. He's hard to put away. You look at who's knocked him out. It's only ever been Miocic when he was it Miocic? He was like chasing after him. He just run onto a right hand. And I think Junior Dos Santos put him away as well. He's tough. You saw against Oleinik, he took a lot of punishment and he kept coming. So I'd be surprised if Gustafsson can stop Verdum here, especially with Gustafsson's style. He's gonna try and use his speed here. He's gonna be light on the feet. He's gonna fight from the outside. That's what I imagine happening. Kind of like how he was fighting against Anthony Smith in his last fight until I don't know why, he went for the clinch. Smith defended it. Then he went for the whizzer throw. Ended up giving his back, and he looked like he quit to me against Smith. Just kind of gave up and got choked out, and I didn't like the Jones finish either. It looked like he kind of quit there to me. Retired after that loss to Smith. So where's Gus at? I know he's only 33 years of age, but man, he's had some tough fights. That first John Jones fight, the Daniel Cormier fight, they take something out of you, fights like that, especially losing both of them. He was so close to touching gold, and he lost both of them fights. That must break your heart. So I just don't agree with the line. I think it's too wide. Gus 60-40, yeah, I'd agree with that. But this line's too wide for me. I'm picking Verdum. Might look dumb here. I can see how Gustafsson can coast from the outside here, but I'm picking Verdum here. I'm on the over. I do think if Verdum wins, it probably is inside the distance. So I'm kind of going against my bet here on the over. But I don't see Gustafsson finishing. I think if he wins, as I said, he's going to kickbox from the outside, use his speed, do his running man impression that he does sometimes, and kind of try and coast his way to a decision. Because Verdum's very durable on the feet. I think he'll have trouble putting him away. Verdum he needs to just try and put it on Gustafsson, just try and bring the quit out on him. He's going to struggle for takedowns, I suspect, but who knows? And if he does get on top, I'd be extremely nervous if I had money on Gustafsson, because I don't like the way he quit from bottom the last couple of fights. And Fabricio Verdum, you don't want that man on top of you. So I'm picking Verdum here purely based on value. I don't think the line should be that wide. Next fight, we've got a co-main event. It's Lil Nog taking on Shogun. I think this fight should be closer to a 50-50. They're both shot. Shogun, I bet him against Paul Craig. I didn't think he looked that bad in his fight before that, where he got the win against Tyson Pedro, but the difference in the 2 fights just was astronomical. It looked like he just completely fallen off a shelf. That they're both shot. Shogun is perhaps a little bit more durable still, maybe. But Shogun looked so slow against Craig. I mean, he was getting lit up on the feet by Paul Craig. He had to resort to takedowns to try and win that fight with lay and pray, effectively. just looked awful. They fought twice before. Shogun's won both fights by decision. Look, I've got to pick Lil Nog here. He's plus 160, plus 165, plus 170. As I said, should be closer to a pick 'em. They're two dinosaurs. They're both shot. Yeah, Lil Nog's like 6 years older, but man, Shogun looks so bad against Paul Craig. I just can't pick him here. He might pull out the win, maybe off of his durability, or maybe he can get his wrestling going like he did against Paul Craig, but Paul Craig went down so easy. But I'm picking Lil Nog. I think the line's off. I think it should be closer to a pick 'em. I've even got some money on Lil Nog. I'm not confident, but at plus 160, I'll pay to find out who is more shot. Main event, we've got Darren Till taking on Rob Whittaker. Really good main event. This is the last fight in Yas Island before we go back to the Apex. We've got, at the moment, the line's fluctuated a bit. Whittaker is kind of, well, he was a bigger favourite actually. I think he was out at minus 160 at one point. It's telling me on here minus 135, but I remember Darren Till was plus 137 at Bet Online, which I wish I'd taken. But he's currently plus 115 at Bet Online. But so money did come in on Till. Now money started to come back in on Whittaker. He's basically a anywhere minus 130 to minus 140 favourite. Real tough fight to call, this one for me. There are question marks around Whittaker in terms of where he's at. I mean, he's only 29 years of age, but he's had a lot of injuries. He had a serious staph infection at one point. He's not fought that frequently over the last couple of years due to all these injuries and so forth. And he's coming off of a knockout loss to Israel Adesanya, and before that war with Yoel Romero, where that kind of fight can take something out of you. But these are all hard things to cap. As a capper, it's, where do you put them at? I don't know. Israel, being knocked out by Israel, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Israel's a champ. He's a phenomenal striker. I've got to say, I didn't like the way Rob went down, especially the second knockdown and ultimately the fight ending knockdown. Israel was leaning back, throwing a left hook, so the power's coming out of the shot. It becomes more of an arm punch. I mean, it did land right on the chin though, so maybe it just caught the sweet spot. It does happen where a punch that doesn't look that heavy just connects in the right place, and it was right on the button. So, I don't want to be saying that Rob's chin's now gone, but, he got put down twice in that fight. The Romero fight, he was down multiple times. That kind of damage does add up. And the thing with the Romero fight is he stayed in the fight till the end. He was, he must have had a concussion. So the other thing to note as well is stylistically, this is MMA, guys. Styles make fights, ultimately. So as a bettor, that's what you've got to look at. And he's not, in terms of strikers, he's only fought. I mean, the best striker that Whittaker has beaten is Uriah Hall. He fought Wonderboy. He lost to Wonderboy. He fought Izzy. He lost to Izzy. The two best strikers he's fought, he's lost to, which there's no shame in losing to either of them. But from a stylistic standpoint, the best striker he's beaten is Uriah Hall. Jacare, yeah, he can throw down on the feet, but he's not a good striker technically. It's his grappling really. Yoel Romero, again, he's not a great striker. He's just very powerful, very explosive. But as long as you can avoid the power and the wrestling, which Rob did because he's so athletic, well, he didn't avoid the power in the second fight, but he managed to avoid the wrestling from round 3 onwards of the first fight and for the subsequent rematch. Then when you actually just break them down to being strikers, they're not great strikers. So Darren Till is he's not as good as Wonderboy or Israel Adesanya, even though he's got that win over Wonderboy. We'll come on to that in a minute. But stylistically, this is a good striker he's facing in Darren Till. But I mean, the problem with Darren Till is Well, firstly, he's a southpaw. Now, Rob Whittaker has never faced a southpaw, at least not in his UFC career, which is, the last eight years or so. So I wonder if that's going to throw up any issues for him facing a southpaw here. So that's something to bear in mind. Darren Till, he's a solid striker, southpaw stance. He does have power, but he's low volume. Now, Rob's definitely got the higher volume, but Rob is more of he kind of is more lungy with his strikes. He's not as technically refined. He relies on that explosiveness, whereas Darren Till is more of a, traditional striker. Will try and time shots. Will try and use forward motion, but he can counter as well very well. You've got to be very careful with his left hand. He's got good elbows as well. But he is definitely low volume, and he will try and keep fights at a slower pace. I know he went 5 rounds with Wonderboy, but this is only the second time he's going 5 rounds. Woodley fight, obviously, but that ended in the second round. Well, in the Masvidal fight, but that ended in the second round. So I think he definitely likes to keep fights at his pace. If he's forced into a high-paced fight, we don't know about his cardio. He used to have a humongous cut to 170 that must have taken something out of him. So maybe at 185 his cardio will be okay, but it is a question mark. The volume is a bit of an issue as well for him. But he is a good striker. You saw that against Wonderboy. Wonderboy gave him a lot of respect. We've never seen Wonderboy so tentative in a fight before, except for probably against Tyrone Woodley, where he was very wary of the power. But he was still outpointing Woodley up until the big moments went Woodley's way. But again, Darren Till is the only guy where we've seen him that kind of hesitant. And Till isn't the best finisher in the world, but he does have power. I know he knocked out Wendell in his debut. He dropped Nicholas Dalby. He dropped Ayari. He dropped Bojan. He stopped Cerrone. He dropped Wonderboy. He's dropped everyone he's fought in the UFC that he's defeated besides Kelvin Gastelum, and he dropped Jorge Masvidal as well. So you can't say this guy doesn't have power. He does, and that's something we have to bear in mind here with regards to Whittaker and the damage he's taken. But these people seem to be able to recover Till for whatever reason, and I don't know why, but you just can't kind of finish these guys off. So this is just a really interesting stylistic fight. They're not much apart in age. Whittaker's what's Till, 27 there? It's a couple of years older, Whittaker. But, the mileage definitely is with him. I know he got knocked out by Masvidal, but it was a one-punch knockout. Obviously, it's never good being put out cold, but, he only took one punch. It wasn't like he was still in there concussed and still being hit, and Woodley dropped him as well, but again it was one punch. So is his chin going to be better at middleweight? Because it was a hellacious cut that he had. It must have been affecting his chin to some extent. So he's coming off that win over Kelvin Gastelum, his first fight at middleweight. It was a bit of a cagey affair. I think he needed that fight to get his confidence back. He spoke afterwards about how nervous he felt going into that fight after being knocked out in his hometown, and he got a solid decision victory over a solid fighter. Kelvin Gastelum's a good striker, and he's got power, so that would be a confidence booster for Darren. But he does need to. I can't see him increasing the volume. It's just his style. But Whittaker needs to be careful with them blitzes he does, that he doesn't run into something. But Darren Till defensively does tend to lean back. It's what Izzy does, but with Izzy you just feel like he's a bit quicker than Darren on the reflex side of things. Whereas Darren, I don't think he's quite as quick in terms of leaning back, and that's how he does defend, is leaning back. So is Rob going to run into something, or will he catch Darren with something before Darren lands something big? And there's just unknowns here, just with Rob's durability, and just where he's at. It's a tough fight to cap. And stylistically, southpaw, best striker, true striker he's beaten is Uriah Hall. I've seen some people say Whittaker is going to wrestle here. I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening at all. I think this is going to be a stand-up fight. So it's an interesting fight, tough fight to call. I'm going to stick with my theme of picking underdogs. I'm going to pick Darren Till. I think if you've got like the plus, I know he was plus 137. Did I say at Bet Online? I saw him out for a while. If you've got that kind of price, I think it's a decent bet. But it's definitely not a fight where I can go big on either way, because there's just question marks about Rob. But if we are over-analysing it too much, and Rob's still got everything that he had, then you've probably got to give the advantage to Rob. But it's a very interesting fight. But I'm going to go with Darren Till. So that breaks down the card, guys. Good luck with your bets. Hope you cash. I think it's a very, very live card for underdogs. As I said at the start, I don't think that besides one or two, not confident in anyone. Putting out the wins here, it's one of the most open cards I've seen in terms of UFC betting, and it's a 15-fight card. I don't know if we've ever had a 15-fight card before. So good luck, everyone. I'll be back next week when we will break down the Brunson Shabazian card. Good luck.